Did you know this? Yesterday was National Letter of Intent Signing Day. I can't even say it came in with a whimper or went out like a lamb or whatever. Didn't even notice. Didn't even know that it happened. That's a real shame, man. I tell you. I mean, I'm going to talk about the offensive line today. We're going to talk about the transfers who came in and what Pitt got and this and that. You know, we're not going to talk about basketball. We're going to take a little time off from that. We spent the last 3 days talking about basketball. Monday, we recapped the Wake Forest game. You know, Tuesday, we recapped. Excuse me. Man, I was doing better, and now here I am. Got this thing in my throat again. My voice is much better than it was over the weekend. I'm getting better. I'm going to stop talking about it. Eventually, I'm going to get to the point where I'm so recovered that I don't even mention it anymore. But Monday, we talked about the Wake Forest game. Tuesday, we talked about the Virginia game after it happened. And then, of course, yesterday, we talked about how they can bounce back from the Virginia game, what they need to do going forward. So I think we can take a break from basketball. I'm sure we'll get some questions in the mailbag about it. Obviously, we talked a lot about basketball last night on the live show right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So I don't think we need to dig too deep into hoops anymore. And like I say, I want to talk about the offensive line and what Pitt is getting there and who they've brought in and kind of how that group looks. I got my legal pad out here. I got a lot of things on the old legal pad, but at the bottom, these are all the returning starts and things that you can see. Returning starts, who's played, how many career appearances they made, all those different things. So we're going to talk about the offensive line, but yesterday was signing day, and it just didn't matter. Some schools signed guys. I saw that. There was actually a kid, Bryson Williams, a kid who took an official visit to Pitt, ended up signing with a school yesterday. I think it was Michigan State. Pitt obviously didn't sign anyone. No notable news. I mean, just a nothing. It just didn't even exist, and it's a real shame. And we've talked about this before, and we don't need to spend too much time, you're Googleizing the loss of signing day here. But it is a shame because, that February signing day used to really mean something. It used to be special. It used to be a big occasion. It used to be an event. It used to be a holiday, really. And it made sense, like, when you think about the calendar. First week of February, first Wednesday of February, what's going on in sports, right? The major sports, I mean, obviously in the NFL, you have the Super Bowl coming up. That's a few days away. And by Wednesday of the week, a lot of times the Super Bowl would be the Sunday after signing day. So by Wednesday leading up to the Super Bowl, you're like a week and a half into the anticipation for the Super Bowl. It's not like it's taking all of the spotlight. But most people, I think, are just ready for the game to actually be played. So that's kind of overshadowing it, but not that much. Major League Baseball not happening. NBA and NHL, they're in the middle of their seasons. Right now it's been a little bit ridiculous in the NBA with the trades, but by and large, that's just kind of mid-season doldrums. College basketball is obviously going on, and it's ramping up. March is a month away. But that first week of February, last week of January, I mean, obviously there are things to talk about. We've talked about it all week. So it's not like nothing is happening. But if there's any lull once you get into the conference schedule, it's probably right around now, the first or second week of February, before things really ramp up in the intensity heading into March. And so, plop down right in the middle of this, you had signing day. This like weird, unique beast that just dominated headlines and got a lot of spotlight on the first Wednesday in February. It is a Wednesday too. It's not a weekend or anything like that. But people were like glued to the internet with signing day. I mean, it's a big, big deal. Or it was. Because now, once they added the December signing day, and I think everybody could see it coming that was going to become the dominant signing day, and that's what happened. And that was fun and exciting. Third Wednesday in December, it's, big deal. But like, it kind of wasn't. It was never as big a deal as that February signing day was, because you have a whole lot more going on. The NFL is in the regular season, coming up to the playoffs. And so there's a lot of anticipation and storylines there. It definitely is dominating the headlines. And even then, even with college football, you're putting it in the middle of the college football bowl season. The playoffs haven't started yet. And plus, like the third weekend in December, or the third Wednesday in December, is right around Christmas, like right leading up to Christmas. There's a lot of other things going on to take attention away from the third Wednesday in December. And then this year they moved it to the first Wednesday in December, which made it even less notable because no sooner had the conference championship games ended. Actually, was it before the conference championship games? It might have been before the conference championship games. So between the regular season and the conference championship games, and even if it was after the conference championship games, it'd only be a few days after those conference championship games. And now you've got this signing day just kind of cast in there. Wow, conference championships is a big deal. Playoffs. Oh, yeah, so signing day. Like, they killed it. They killed it. For all the people want to talk about how they have killed this or that in college sports, they really did kill signing day as a big, exciting event. And I miss it because, that was one thing that, like, nobody was really harmed by signing day. It was just a cool thing. It was a day where all the schools get to be future national champions. All the recruits get to be future All-Americans. Everybody's excited. Nobody loses. I mean, you might miss out on a guy or you might add a guy, whatever. But it was just a day of celebration. It was good vibes only. And they killed it. Took it away. For, like, nothing. I mean, there won't be a signing day anymore or something because they eliminated the national letter of intent. It's just... There's a lot of things to bemoan the loss of in college sports and in college football in particular. Signing day, maybe there are other things that overshadow it in terms of what we've lost, but signing day is one that is, it hits me. I miss it because it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun covering signing day. It was a lot of fun waking up early and watching the faxes roll in and all that. It was a good time. It was a good time. And now, not so much. Oh, well, what are you going to do? What we do have is now the portal season and an opportunity to add to your roster and upgrade your roster pretty much overnight in one offseason. And that's what Pitt did this year, or at least what they set out to do on the offensive line. Did they get it done? Did they upgrade the offensive line? Did they do enough? I think we talked about this a little bit last week when it looked like they might get another key piece. Well, they missed on that one, and we'll talk about that. But they still did add 3 linemen to the group. So what do they have on the offensive line? What are they bringing back? What did they add? And what should we expect going into 2025? Let's talk about the offensive line, how they upgraded the position or how they attempted to upgrade the position this offseason right here on the Thursday edition of the Morning Pitt, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Yeah, it's Thursday. It's the Morning Pitt, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. We're almost to the end of the week. Just one more day until the weekend. We always look forward to that. Of course, you know what Friday means. We'll have our mailbag edition of the Morning Pitt here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. There's still time to get questions in. So if you have something you want us to talk about, something you want me to, a question you want answered or whatever it is, go to the website. Go to Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. But look for the thread. It's on the Between Fifth and Forbes message board. It says mail time. And go there. Post your question in that thread, and we'll answer as many as we can on the mailbag. Sometimes we get pretty close to answering them all. Sometimes we miss on a few. We usually try and catch up. If we have a few left over from the previous week, we try and get those in to the next week. It probably ends up just pushing us back on how many we finished that week, but we get as many questions as we can. Try and get it in 25 or sometimes 30 minutes on the mailbag. But we always appreciate it. It's a lot of fun. You guys get to choose the topics, and we'll respond to them. So go do it. Put your comment and question in there. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. That way you never miss any of our Pitt video content. All day, every day, we have, not all day, every day. That's our thing we say about the message boards, right? Every day we have new video content right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Morning Pitt videos, live stream every Wednesday night at 8:30, and then post-game press conferences, interviews, and all those things. youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Like and subscribe. All right, let's talk about the offensive line haul. I think you know by now who Pitt brought in from the transfer portal, but let's roll the clock back and state the very simple fact that we've been stating since the end of November, and actually probably earlier than that. We probably talked about it in mid-November or early November, that the number one priority for the Pitt staff in the portal was offensive line. I'm slapping my hand on my leg. I don't know if it's coming through on the microphone. Kind of. I'm slapping my hand on my leg to emphasize the point. offensive line. They had to upgrade the offensive line. I don't think it's hyperbole to say this was the most important thing they could do this offseason. Or maybe like 1A and 1B, along with retaining certain key guys. Eli Holstein, Desmond Reed, a few of the offensive linemen, Kyle Lewis and Rasheem Biles, chief among them, Kenny Johnson. They had to hold on to those guys, and they had to upgrade the offensive line through the portal. They had to bring in more linemen. And that's what they set out to do. Now, it looked for some time that they were going to be content with just 2 transfer linemen, which to me was insane. Insane. Like, certifiably insane and indefensible. Not quite as indefensible as, kicking a field goal on 4th and 1 in second overtime, but indefensible. Like, the second most indefensible thing you can do behind kicking a field goal on 4th and 1 in the second overtime. They couldn't get away with just bringing in 2 transfer offensive linemen, because even if those guys filled out the starting lineup, there's still the matter of depth. And this is what really got Pitt last year. No, their starting offensive line with Branson Taylor was not great. Part of it was that they had Ryan Jacoby and Jason Collier in and out together. But I think like the starting 5 of Taylor, Jacoby, Lyndon Cooper, BJ Williams, and Ryan Baer was pretty solid. Maybe even good. Maybe with a chance to be good if they all stayed together and all stayed healthy throughout the season. And we said that since August. We said that in training camp, that they had a chance to be good. But we had major questions about the depth. We didn't think they could really survive an injury. If an injury happened and they had to go into the depth, it was going to be a very concerning situation due to the lack of experience throughout the group. You had a pretty solid starting 5, but I don't know about what's behind them. Well, we found out, and it wasn't good. And that's no disrespect to those players. I'm willing to say that the biggest issue with the depth on Pitt's offensive line last year was just a lack of experience. You know what I mean? Like when you brought in Jackson Brown for a start, he was making his first start. When you brought in Isaiah Montgomery for a start, he was making his first start. When you brought in Terrence Enos for a start, he was making he might have had 1 start prior to last year, but not much, right? Like these guys were all making their first starts. They were playing for the first time, and that's hard. It's hard to do, even for a talented offensive lineman. I think we all have memories of Dorian Johnson in 2013, as good as he was, and I think he ended up being an All-American, 5-star offensive line prospect, All-American guy down the road. He struggled as a freshman. It was really hard. Jeremiah Tauchu, right, at Georgia Tech, just crushing him when he had to start at left tackle or right tackle, wherever it was. And so it's hard to play when you don't have that experience. And that was, I'm far more willing to say, well, the issue when Brown and Montgomery and Enos had to go in, the issue was it was inexperience rather than, those guys stink. I think there's good potential there for all 3 of those guys. I do. They just didn't have much experience. They didn't get on the field much prior to last season, and then last year they're thrown into the starting lineup and have to make the best of it. So that was the big issue with Pitt's offensive line last year, is that they just didn't have a lot of experience in the depth. Just looking up real quick. I forgot to, so I made a list, calculated how many starts on the current roster, offensive line, last year and this year. Yeah, Isaiah Montgomery actually started 3 games. That's what I couldn't remember, was if Montgomery, how many starts he had, because I actually didn't include him when I was adding it all up of how many career starts there are in the returning group plus the transfers coming in. And Montgomery is 3 more, so it's actually even better than I thought. 3 that they didn't have the previous year. I digress. Experience was the key factor that was missing, I think, from the depth last year. By adding 3 transfers in addition to the playing time that those guys, the returning players got last year, experience is not nearly as short as it was a year ago. By my math, going into last season, Pitt's offensive line had 37 career starts combined as a group. 37, the entire position group. This year, combined with the returning players and the incoming transfers, I count 107 combined career starts. Plus, tons of playing time. Games played beyond those 107 career starts. but like the games played could include special teams or, extra tight end or something, nonsense like that. It doesn't matter. 107 career starts for these players. And there's an interesting split between returning players and transfers, because the returning players on Pitt's roster have 67 career combined starts, and the incoming transfers have 40. So I think you've really filled out the group with experience. And I just think that's so important. Now, last week, there was a lot of intrigue following the recruitment of Rocco Spindler, the son of former Pitt great Mark Spindler. Went to Notre Dame for like 5 years or something. He went into the transfer portal, visited Pitt last week. We talked a lot about him and about the possibility of getting him and what he might mean. Ultimately, he chose Nebraska over the weekend. It happens. I think Pitt was in good shape. Nebraska ultimately won. Spindler would have made this group even better. But the fact that they were able to get 3 offensive linemen, like I said, I thought it would be insane if they only took 2. I still think 3 is a little bit light. I think getting 4 or even 5, if you could, would be ideal. But 3 is better than 2. And again, they're 3 experienced guys. Keith Gouveia from Richmond has 24 career starts. Kendall Stanley from Charlotte has started all 13 games he's played in his career. And then Jeff Percy, the offensive tackle from Michigan, has made 3 starts, and he's played in 41 games. So combined, those guys have 40 starts. Out of Pitt's roster, Ryan Barra has 22 career starts. B.J. Williams has 19. Lyndon Cooper has 17. Terrence Enos has 5. Isaiah Montgomery has 3. And Jackson Brown has 1. That's a lot of experience. And I think there are a lot. I mean, experience helps you at any position, but offensive line might be the one that it helps the most, where these guys have been on the field, they've played, they have experience playing, they know what it's like to play against real live pass rushers and not just the scout team or not just being on the scout team, but playing an actual team. And plus, these guys have all been through college strength and conditioning programs as well. I think this group looks significantly upgraded over what they had a year ago. And I think you could go through those 9 names that I just listed. Bear, Williams, Cooper, Enos, Montgomery, Brown, plus Gouveia, Stanley, and Percy. And, I mean, that's 9 out of the 10 you would need for a 2-deep that you've got now that have a combined 107 career starts, filling out your 2-deep. And you really, to my eyes, as I look at it, you just need a backup center. And it could be Caleb Holmes, who was one of the best offensive line recruits the Pat Narduzzi's brought to Pitt. Came in as a true freshman last year. And that's your 10th guy. That's your backup center. Otherwise, you're going with these guys who have combined more than 100 starts. I think, and I mean, like, we're a long way away from the start. We're 7 months away from the start of the season, and we have to see a lot of these guys actually play and see what kind of improvement the returning players make. But, I mean, I don't think it's crazy to say that this group right now, as it's constructed, is pretty far ahead of where last year's group was. Branson Taylor might still be the best tackle out of either group, but this group, with the experience, I think as a whole looks a lot better than last year. And this was the most important thing they had to do, was make this group better than last year. Make it better with top-end talent and make it better in the depth. Because we saw how one injury could derail the season. Given the commitment they've made to Eli Holstein as their guy, the franchise quarterback, given how important Desmond Reed is to this offense, and given how important offense is to this team in winning football games. The offensive line, getting it right with that group, upgrading the group, making it deeper, and making it just good and effective was the number one goal this offseason. And it's the most important thing for this team heading into next season. Because if the offensive line can be good, if the offensive line can play well, this team could be really good. Well, their offense can be really good. And if your offense is really good, you have a chance to be really good as a team. So, I'm cautiously optimistic about this offensive line. I'm cautiously optimistic about the improvements they've made here. I'm cautiously optimistic about how the depth looks. I'm cautiously optimistic about what this line could be and what that could mean for the team in the fall. So I think they did a good job restocking it, and we'll see. We'll see if that comes to fruition. But they should be in better position to handle an injury if one comes, right? Because now you've got Bear, you've got Kendall Stanley, you've got Jeff Percy, plus the guys who played at tackle last year, Enos and Montgomery and Brown. You've got a lot of experienced tackles that if you lose one guy, like last year when they lost one guy, you're not going to be putting players in for their first career start to replace them. That might happen at center, but otherwise, guard, tackle, you should have experienced players ready to step in. So I think that's good. We'll see what comes of it. All right, don't forget to put your questions in at Panther-Lair.com for tomorrow's mailbag. We look forward to that, of course. I'm getting pretty scratchy here at the end, but we made it. I think we're improving. Tomorrow's going to be the best day yet. I can't wait. Like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com so you don't miss any of our Pitt video content. Have a great Thursday, folks. I hope this week's been going well for you, or as well as things can these days. And we will catch up with you tomorrow for the Morning Pitt right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.